What's good, everyone? Today we're going to be here for my round 6 AFL tips and predictions. And round 6, let me tell you, this is going to be a really exciting round of footy with so many juicy matchups, so many games that could go either way, 50-50. Before we go through those games in round 6 in more detail, let's have a look at round 5 to see how I went. And no surprises to see that I did shocking. A lot of people let me know about it, to be fair. I know 3 out of 8's bad. Most people probably would have gotten a 4 or a 5. This was my worst game in terms of the first game of the season. Thought Melbourne would win by 25 points at the MCG. I didn't have Brisbane to give them much of a chance, but they're back in form, it looks like. I thought the Bulldogs had won 9 of the last 10 games against the Bombers, but after halftime particularly, it was completely Essendon. I think they kicked 10 of the next 11 at one stage. The Giants and the Saints, this is my upset tip of the round. I thought, the Saints, my team, I figured I'd back them in. Yeah, we weren't the best, but tell you what, I wasn't that far off, just the 1 point. And then Carlton and Adelaide, I was also only 2 points off this one. Most people would have went Carlton, though. They hadn't lost a game up until this point, whereas the Crows were winless. And then this is where the tips started to get a little bit better. They fell into my favour. These were really easy ones, though. I felt Gold Coast to beat Hawthorn, Port to beat Freo. To be fair, could have gone either way. Geelong, obviously, taking account for North Melbourne. Richmond, I just thought they'd get the job done. I thought they'd been alright. The Tigers is a late, but West Coast had their best win, in my opinion, since their last win against Richmond. So 3 out of 9. Now, it is starting to annoy me big time that I can't sort through the tipsters for round 5 to see the actual scores. There's no option to do that anymore. So I can't do that, but it looks like Beleen Wood is currently in the lead. He's used 2 of his jokers. Most of these people in the lead would have probably used both of their jokers. He's with 50. 5 Vision with 49, Fernando Fazio with 48. So I've just been going through the entire page to try and see if anyone got a perfect score through their tips, and it seems like the best scores were a few 7s. There were way more 0s than 7s this week in tipping, which just goes to show how difficult it was to tip. Look at all these 0s on the page for round 5. We'll take a look at my AFL fantasy as well, considering it isn't getting better, it's probably getting worse, and there are probably reasons for it. A lot of people did poorly though this time in the fantasy scene. I'm 154th of 404 in my comp, and I got a score of 1669. So, we're not looking great. I have traded in a couple players. I've got it in Walsh. I think there should be another trade that I'll probably make, possibly have a look at. But, have a look at my last round if you want to. And I know it says there, but I did captain Bont. I've actually decided to trade him out because he only made me 56. And I feel like Bont could maybe be on a little bit of a decline at the moment. So, a bit of a poor one. I forgot to get rid of the vice-captaincy on Martin. But even if I kept him on, he had a poor score as well. So, let's move now back to the tips. We'll go through the big call. So, if you haven't joined the fantasy and you're into that, feel free to do so. Because there will be, a couple prizes as well to be awarded. Now, for the big calls, I needed to get 3 this week. And it was pretty poor. The only one I got right was actually in the second last game when Jezza kicked 6 goals. Which means the most liked punishment was from Harrison Dinosaur Review. This is 2 in a row now. And every like that this comment, Carbon has to do 1 push-up. So it ended up getting 171 likes. I will get the push-ups done by the next tipping video. That's a guarantee. Considering I'm filming this on the day of the tips videos, I've got no time to do 171 push-ups. And I know people are wondering when I'll do the library stream. It'll be over the next couple of weeks. So I'm picking a day. I've got a bit of a busy schedule ahead. For this one though, we'll see how many big calls I need to get in order to avoid the punishment. How many big calls I need for this week? Please be low, because I've just had 2 weeks of having to do some. I'm alright with that. I'm okay with that. So this week, I need to get the 2 big calls correct. I spun the wheel on a members-only live stream. So if you do want to become a member, there's extra bonus member content such as me spinning the wheel for my big calls. And like last week, I told you guys that less than 50% of you guys who are watching the videos are subscribed. It's gone up to 56.3. It's my birthday yesterday. If you guys want to give it a late birthday present and you've been enjoying the tips videos and the other content as a late, then hit the subscribe button. We want to see the count go up, and we've got a few really big videos coming out in the next few days that, on top of the tips videos, you wouldn't want to miss out, and you would be missing out on them if you didn't hit the subscribe button. But anyways, if you've already done that, that's awesome. Let's get straight into the tips. Now, the first game we have on the Thursday night, it's St Kilda taking on the Western Bulldogs. Now, I know you see behind me, you go, oh, of course you're going to be biased and not put the Bulldog scarf up. If you saw my last week's tips video, I don't have a Bulldog scarf. I got stolen. I still haven't got my chances to get a new one yet. So maybe it's a good omen, the fact that I only have the Saints scarf. It must mean there's just the one winner. It is going to be a very interesting game considering the 2 sides probably started a little bit poorly for what they were expecting. And at the moment are both sitting 2 and 3. Although, to be fair, I feel like the Dogs at the moment are definitely in the worst of form. At least with the Saints, you can sort of see in a way where they're at. They were a little bit disappointing against the Giants for a lot of the game. Like for the first 3 quarters, the Giants were the better side, and St Kilda's turnovers really let them down and really cost them quite a few goals. To be fair, credit to St Kilda, that last 10-15 minutes where they kicked 6 goals in a row to storm home and probably pinch it, they would have if it was an extra couple of minutes. At least it gave me a bit of hope for the next few weeks that, you know, the Saints, if they really want to, can take it up to the best. The issue with the Saints, they just need to play 4 quarters of footy, like full 4 consistent quarters of footy. Whereas the Western Bulldogs, we all know sort of where they're at the moment. Luke Beveridge seems to be a really lost coach right now, with all their fans wanting him out. On the weekend, obviously, you know, after half time, they were completely beaten in the contest, the Bulldogs. The Bombers really did all they wanted to, and I feel like the selection changes that Bevo's making at the moment is, you know, going to come under fire. Like, we don't really know why Daniel wasn't playing. Bramble got a spot ahead of him. Daly Dale was a sub. You know, Sanders again getting subbed out of the game when I don't think he deserves to get the sub. He's one of the best youngsters in the competition, and I feel like St Kilda, last time these two sides met, the Saints got the job done by 50. So the Saints have sort of been matching up quite well against the Dogs as of late. The Western Bulldogs are also going to be without Tom Liberatore, whereas I think Max King is going to be playing this week. It's a bit of a hit and miss, I'm not too sure. He wasn't great though last week. 74% of the tipsters predicted St Kilda. The Dogs have definitely looked flat over the last few weeks. They're just not that good of a side, the Dogs, let's be real. They're not getting enough out of their list. And I think the Saints should respond with a win here on the Thursday night. They got the Thursday night win against the Pies earlier this season. Hopefully the Saints can get the job done. I think they should be too good for the Dogs, although a Dogs response is definitely on the cards. But I think in a relatively close game, the Saints pull away in the second half and win it by 17 points. With my big call, the Dogs score 4 or less goals in the second half. We head to the Friday night game now, and we've got Adelaide taking on Essendon at the Adelaide Oval. I'll tell you what, this is going to be a very intriguing contest, and this is going to be one of the bigger live streams I do on the channel, because I will be live for this one with the Marmalade lads and also featuring some of the other Div 12 Resi. So I reckon it's going to be a pretty big stream, quite entertaining, and I reckon it's going to be a relatively entertaining game as well, because at the moment both of these sides have started to pick up some good form. Essendon, they've found form, you know, throughout the season before. They just haven't really been able to string consistency. That's the issue I feel still with Essendon's consistency. You know, 1 good week and 1 average week. The only really bad game they had was against Port, to be fair. After quarter time, they were absolutely nowhere to be seen. But interstate, I feel like Essendon, they're just not the side I trust interstate. In Melbourne, they're really good. They were really good against the Dogs, honestly. They, tore them a new one. Stringer in his contract year was really hot. Yeah, I thought Harrison Jones had a really good game, and Dersmer as well. Merritt, always playing really good footy. So I feel like, he can continue on his really strong season. Zach Merritt, he could have another big game against the Crows here, who have a midfield that people have been questioning so far this year, but I thought they got back to their best in their midfield, and just in general, the Crows on the weekend against the Blues. Probably one of their best wins they've had in quite a while, to revive their season. Now they're still back on track because they win this 2-4. They've got some winnable games ahead of them, and I feel like that season's sort of just back on track. They've finally put on a good score of over 100. Walker finally played some good footy. Rankin, he kicked 3 goals and was in the midfield for a bit, and he was also, really good. So it's going to be a tight one, I feel like. I don't expect this one to be a blowout to any side. Essendon, I could see winning. The reason why I'm leaning more towards the Crows is because the Crows finally had a game where we actually saw something positive out of them, where they can actually take on to the next week. Both sides will have the confidence leading into this one, but I feel like at the Adelaide Oval, Adelaide probably should get the job done in front of their fans. Essendon at the Adelaide Oval, I'm not really trustworthy in them yet, so I'm going the Crows as a bit of a safer tip. It could go either way probably, but I'm going the Crows by 14 in a good game, with my big call for this one, that Jake Stringer kicks 1 or less goals. Next up, we head to the MCG on the Saturday afternoon between Collingwood and Port Adelaide. I'll try and head to as much of this game as I can after Wattle Park play, but yeah, this is another intriguing matchup. We've got a lot of really close games of footy, I think, on the cards. Probably haven't started the season off the way they would have liked to, with a 2-3 record, although they have been finding a couple of wins in a row. The form's starting to get there. They had the bye last week, but obviously, they beat Brisbane at the Gabba, they beat Hawks, but I wasn't convinced with a Hawthorn win, because I only watched the last quarter, and I didn't really see Collingwood, provide anything. It seemed like they ran out of energy, which is something you don't often expect from a Collingwood side, especially against Hawthorn, who haven't yet to get a win. It's been disappointing from the Pies. The faith right now isn't there for them, whereas I think for Port Adelaide, they've definitely proven a lot more than Collingwood have with their start to the season. 5 games with the 4 wins, and all convincing games. I feel like even against Melbourne, I thought they were pretty strong. It was just Melbourne were just a slightly class above. But yeah, against Freo, they probably weren't the better side for longer, but they just stay in the game with all of their big guns, firing at the right times. I just felt like the class for the power shone at the right time, and they got that really important 3-point win to really solidify a spot in them in the top 4, and I think they're definitely going to be a top 4 and possible flag contender. If they win this game, I think I'm convinced on the power. But Adelaide, last time they played Collingwood at the MCG, they got done by 70 plus, so it's probably a reason why Collingwood are 62% of the tipsters, but Port Adelaide have been the better side. I don't really think Collingwood are going to be that dominant. If they win, I don't think they'll win by a lot, the Pies, whereas the power, if they win, they could win by a lot, possibly. So I'm going to go the power on this one, and I think they're going to done decently well by 21 points. With my big call, the Pies lead for longer, but lose. Alrighty, next up, I'm saying this is going to be game of the round. Carlton and GWS at Marvel Stadium on the 4:35 PM time slot. This is going to be a cracker of a game, I reckon. Both these sides, I reckon, are going to be top 4 quality at the end of the season. And it could have been a battle of the undefeated, although Carlton on the weekend, they just fell short to Adelaide, who were really, really determined to get that win. They were probably the better side, even though Carlton had the more scoring shots and probably for longer played the slightly more convincing footy. Because at one stage, the Blues were up by 16 with 6 minutes to go. And I was thinking, yeah, surely Adelaide are done there. I think they ran out of legs at too early. And I think for Carlton, it's not the end of the world. They've been getting all the close wins. Finally, with a loss, they can probably get more out of a loss in the review because, it's a loss, so they want to talk more about the results. So, yeah, this is about as 50-50 as a game as I can think of. The Giants, of course, they're undefeated. They almost dropped the game against the Saints. I feel like they just ran out of legs with a few of their injuries. They just sort of dropped a bit in their pressure, and they probably expected that the game was already sewn up when they're up by 35 midway through that last quarter. Cornelio seems to be one of the injuries. Obviously, Sam Taylor, that was a really tragic concussion. Luckily, it seems to be that he's all right. But without Sam Taylor, it'll help the likes, Charlie Kerner. He could probably kick 1 or 2 extra goals, which ultimately could make the difference. I think the winner of this game will tell me right at the moment who's the better side. But I think the Giants are just a bit the better side just because of the way they transition the ball and how, skillful they are when doing so. They just can tear apart opposition. And I think they did that last year at Marvel in the last game of the season against the Blues to beat them by quite a bit. So I'm going to lean on the Giants here. I think they can do this again. It will be tighter though because the Giants have a couple outs. But to be fair, so did the Blues. So in a way, it kind of balances things out. But I think the Giants, this is going to be one of the really good games of the round. They win the game by 7 points, and my big call, there'll be 9 or more lead changes throughout the game. And on the Saturday night at the Gabba, we've got Brisbane taking on Geelong. Another really good game. What a Saturday we've got lined up for us. I feel like it could be even better than last Saturday, and we saw 3 thrillers. Now the Lions obviously backing into some form that we were obviously expecting to come at some point into the season because the Lions, I think, are still a top 4 side. And over time, I think they'll eventually push into that top 4 position. It's just been a bit of a slow start for them. But against Melbourne, I thought they were coached really well by Chris Fagan, and they were clinical. Cam Rayner had one of his best games. Cameron, I felt like he got better as the game wore on. And Kai Lohman, he's someone who I'm actually underrating right now. He's starting to play some really good footy as one of the youngsters for the Lions. The Cats are obviously undefeated. They've been a surprise package so far to start this season. But there is a slight chance that this season could start to be derailed because their next 5 are incredibly tough. So you'd think they'd want to get maybe 1 or 2 wins at the very least to just remain that form. Because I think right now, they're definitely eyeing at that top 4 spot, the Cats. But with the Cats, they haven't really been playing any top tier sides just as of yet. So this is going to be a good test to see where they're at. Obviously beating North by 75 last week. You can't take a lot out of that. It's at GMHBA and North is still a nothing side. Yeah, this is a tight one to tip. 69% to go in Brisbane. Normally, I'd be like, oh, you just lean on the Lions because it's at the Gabba. Can't say that at the moment because the Gabba isn't much of a fortress for the Lions anymore. They lost their first 2 games of the season there and they didn't lose a single game there last year. So you would think surely not 3 in a row that the Lions lose in, but it's a chance. I think the Lions are definitely the more likely side to win, but I'm going upset potential. I think the Cats, people are going to doubt them again. People have been down in the Cats all year. I think they're going to go to the Gabba and going to pull off a really, really spirited and heroic 6-point win in one of the games of the round as well. I think in a high scoring affair, the Cats get it done by 6. My big call that there'll be 17 goals or more combined in any half. And last up on the Saturday, we've got the Western Derby between West Coast and Freo. It could be a decent game as well. Who knows? I feel like with recent form, yeah, obviously Freo are going to be the favourites because they're clearly the better side, but West Coast have been finding their form as of late. It's been pretty impressive. I mean, over Sydney, they weren't too bad. They were actually in front at half time and for a lot of the third quarter, winning, that second quarter quite well. It's obviously just Sydney are the much better side. They're obviously going to eventually get their mojo back and run over West Coast. And again, Richmond, consider the first 4 goals of the game. A lot of people who didn't watch the game probably don't realise the fact that they had their backs against the walls and were absolutely smashed early, but were lucky to kick 3 late goals in the first when they probably should have been down by more. And since then, they were just putting on goals for fun, the Eagles. They kicked 8 in a quarter. They could have kicked 9. and they made Richmond look like an embarrassing side with all the inside 50s and dominance and the clearances that West Coast had. The contested footy, Harley Reid was amazing. Got the rising star nom. Jake Waterman kicked 6. So West Coast finally playing some decent footy, and maybe West Coast could be out of that rebuild phase, you know, quicker than Hawthorn and North. Who knows? I mean, if they have another competitive game here, the Dockers just be happy this game's not played at the Adelaide Oval, because their last 2 games, they have both been close losses against 2 very top quality opposition. So it's a disappointing one for Free. They'd be very heartbroken by their 2 losses, because I thought against Port Adelaide, they probably deserved to win. But I always had that sense in me that Port were just going to come back, and they ended up coming back with, I think it was Dixon kicking the final goal with a couple minutes to go. It might have been that, I can't remember, but it was a really, you know, fun game to watch, honestly. I know the Dockers probably need to work on their scoring a little bit more, because they can get their defence locked up very well. It's just up forward, they might not be kicking enough of a score, because I thought they dominated for most of the first half. They just weren't putting enough scoreboard pressure on Port, which allowed them to get back into the game. So I think, yeah, Western Derby, Freo could win by a bit. They won by 100 last year. But West Coast are in some good form, and this is a home derby for West Coast, so they have more home fans. So it could be close for bits and pieces, but Freo are definitely my tip here. I'm going to go Freo to win this game, but it's not going to be a big smashing. I think West Coast right now, you've got to just have a little bit of confidence in the way they can play. They'll have some good patches, but Freo for mine by 32 points. With my big call, Sarong and Brayshaw combined for 70 or more touches. We head to Sunday's games, and first up we got Sydney and Gold Coast at the SCG. Of all the games so far this round, this is the one where it's most lopsided in the tipsters percentage, with 96 going Sydney to 4 Gold Coast. And I think it's a little bit harsh on Gold Coast. I think people are underselling them a little bit, considering the Suns have been going all right, and they've been getting those wins under the radar when no one's really been talking about them. And also with the Suns as well, yeah, they're a pretty poor side away, but the SCG is one of those grounds where they're actually pretty good at. Like, for some reason, the Swans bogey side, I'd have to say, is the Gold Coast Suns. Like, they've beaten the Swans there a few times at the SCG in the last 4 or 5 years. I know last year they didn't get a win against the Swans, so maybe that's why a lot of people are thinking the Swans get the job done. But this has upset potential, but it's hard to see it happening. Now, Sydney had the bye on the weekend. Since then, they got that win against West Coast a bit unconvincingly, and then that Richmond loss. Form hasn't been amazing. They haven't been playing against the top tier sides over the last couple of weeks, but Gold Coast are going to be a bit of a challenge. I feel like they can really challenge the Swans in the contest and in the middle, because they're one of the tougher midfields, I think, the Suns at the moment. Obviously, the Suns got the win against Hawthorn at Heritage Bank, or whatever it's called. It was a bit of an expected result. I thought Hawthorn would make it more competitive, but Gold Coast, you know, they seemed to just come out the blocks early. They kicked the first 3, and that was all the footy I watched from that game, then switched over to Port Adelaide with Freo. But yeah, it was just one of those pretty average expected results. Gold Coast played well though. They can play out of their skins against the crap sides at home, but they just need to be a bit more consistent. I just ultimately think Sydney are the better side, and I think they shouldn't let this one drop. If they do, you know, be a few concerning signs for the Swans after such a good start to the year, but the Swans should win this game. And I think the Swans win it by 24 points with a big call that they kick 7 or more goals in any quarter. And last up, fitting it is the Sunday twilight game. We've got North Melbourne and Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium. I think on the graphic it does say 4:05 for these Sunday games and 1:05. I don't think it is 4:05 though. I think the app that I was getting the times off messed up by 5 minutes, weirdly enough. You know, this is going to be a weird one. I feel like a lot of people think this could be one of the worst games of the round. I disagree. 2 sides haven't got a win yet. Because of the fact they haven't got a win yet, I think this could be one of the better games of the round possibly. This has sneaky game of the round potential, I feel like, because these 2 sides are just going to be really desperate for a win. And because of the fact that that's the case, I'm very tempted to vlog this game, because I want to get an extra bit of content out next week. These neutral games could actually end up being really good ones. So let me know down below if you'd be considering to see a North v Hawthorn vlog as well, because I reckon this game could be okay. The Hawks have definitely been overhyped heading into the year, let's be real. You know, after a decent second half to last year, but realistically Hawthorn, they just have a really average list still. They're just such a young list, and they just can't really seem to string consistency together and all that. But that's the same with North as well. They've got one of the youngest lists in the competition. They just have no senior bodies at the moment, North Melbourne. At least with West Coast, we saw it against Richmond. They had some senior men that sort of helped them lead the way. North really have no one right now over the age of 30 that they can look up to. Like Sheasel probably will win a second best and fairest, and he's arguably one of their biggest leaders. Like, he could be their captain in the next couple of years, and he's only like 20 years old. So, you know, he was also really good against Geelong. But yeah, it was just a disappointing one for the Kangaroos. I thought in patches they were decent. It could have been worse for them, but their defence at the moment is just really, really concerning. I think Hawthorn win this game. I think Hawthorn have given me more signs than North Melbourne, but this could go anywhere. I feel like $3 for North against a winless side's a bit harsh. In a good game though, I think Hawthorn win by 13 points with my big call that North Melbourne choke a 20+ point lead to lose the game. Definitely a tough round to tip here. Looking forward to a lot of these matchups. I'll try and head down to a few games as well. You know, hit that subscribe button like I said before. hit the like button, and join the competitions that I got down below in the description. The more we get, the better it is for the videos. So thanks everyone for watching. Leave a punishment down below. The next one will be done next week, and I'll see you very soon in my next video, which should hopefully be tomorrow for the gather round bit of content.